everyone. I guess he doesn't need introduction, does he? This is CSU Chancellor Timothy P. White. Chris Osuala just wanted to say a few words welcoming him to the stage.
Good afternoon, students, faculty, and staff. For those that do not know me, my name is Christopher Osuala, current ASI Student Body President, and it is my honor to introduce Chancellor White to our beautiful campus on behalf of Cal Poly Pomona. Welcome, Chancellor White.
Am I supposed to sit here?
So before we start the question and answer portion of today's event, everything.
I'm all good.
You're good? You ready? Okay. So before we start the question and answer portion, I would like for the Chancellor to be able to make a few comments if you would like to.
Can I? Well, it's a delight to be here, and I do want to get away from this. I'm not sure what they thought with 3 bottles of water. It's usually a sign of the intensity of the questioning that's going to happen, Mr. President, so I'm going to need you to block for me on this. Let me say that it's really wonderful to be here, and I actually wrote down a couple names I wanted to mention. I have been meeting this day so far with some students that are visiting, thinking about coming to school here over in the dining area, and some of your staff. I took on your president in a game of spike ball. He and his student that paired up with President Ortiz beat me and my student 2-1. So your funding is in trouble. I thought Mike had more clairvoyance than that, but he actually made a very heroic move to get the ball. I don't know if you ever played spike ball. How many played spike ball in this room? See, that's what I thought. 1. Somebody played foursquare. All right, this is like foursquare with a little trampoline in the middle. And you have to put the ball on that little trampoline. And then the idea is when the other team isn't paying close attention is to smack it into the trampoline and it goes flying. And if you're successful, you get a point. So Mike smacked it and went flying, and your funding just got cut 10%. But over in the Los Olivos, I ran into Hector. And I asked Hector in my broken Spanish, and he in his broken English, about what he did here and how long he's worked here, and he told me. And I said, thank you. And I ran into probably another, maybe more iconic name for this campus, Captain Moonlight, over by the student union, basically. I forget the right name, the Broncos Student Center. And also known as Willie Nelson, I understand. And asked him what he did, and he told me. And if I could have met with all of the staff on this campus, I'm sure I would have had related conversations, and it shows. I've been around universities most of my adult life, and as I have been on your campus, the quality of the grounds, the upkeep of the buildings, and I know some buildings are older, and in an ideal world they'd get changed out or renovated or what have you, but you wouldn't know when you walked around this campus where the haves and the have-nots on, and the level of food service, the cleanliness, your new mobile truck. I'm sure I'll see more in the residence halls later and in other places. And so I wanted to shout out to the staff of Cal Poly Pomona to say thank you, because I often think of universities as a 3-legged stool, and it's not a particularly great metaphor, but it actually is apt. And the great universities, and Cal Poly Pomona is one of them, has a strong and robust student body and a strong and robust faculty, but it also must have a strong and robust staff that enable the faculty and students to create that learning environment and the research applications and the engagement with the community, take care of the business side of running this place, as well as the student support and faculty support. And so, to me, all three are vital to the way a great university functions, and my congratulations to everyone here, but particularly to the staff whose work often goes unrecognized. So please join me in thanking the staff members. I wanted to just say a few words about managing expectations on the financial side of Prop 30. First, let me say that to each of you that helped either yourself with your vote or to communicate to others or get people out to register to vote, I think the passage of Prop 30 sends two signals to us at Cal Poly Pomona in the Cal State system. One is that for the first time in quite a while, there will be an investment in new resources for us. Modest as it may be, it's still a step in the right direction, and we should be grateful and thankful for that. We still have politics to continue to work on before the May revise is coming out pretty soon now, and then there'll be the final run to getting it signed into law. The good news with that passage is that student tuition did not go up this year, and it won't go up next year, so students can plan in a different way for their future. And likewise, on the faculty and staff side, it creates an opportunity where rather than going through the hard stuff we've all been going through, but you here have been going through the last 5 or 6 years, is actually a chance to do some things differently. So there won't be a furlough program, there won't be things of that nature that have been so difficult to endure in the past. And I think the public voice that said we want to vote for Prop 30 creates these resources that create opportunity for us. But it also created a voice that said, let's stop disinvesting in public education. Now, there's some parts of this great state that have been doing very well in the last 2 or 3 years, and so when November came around, their unemployment rates were already down, and housing prices going back up, and foreclosures non-existent, and so forth. But there's so many places in California, including the Inland Empire, and right around this campus, where unemployment is still very high, and foreclosures are still an amazingly difficult problem for the families involved, but also for the economy, and the list goes on and on. And for those folks who are still hurting, to vote in a higher tax on themselves about education, to me, is as profound as the dollars themselves. That we've finally got a moment where the public at large says education matters. And so with that then comes a responsibility on our side to not be disrespectful of that wish of the public at large. And our task now is with these new resources is how do we improve access and improve completion rates and get more degrees out into the workforce and onto grad school and so forth, more teachers in the schools, sort of our core learning environment business, and make sure our research then applies to issues that matter to the region as well as the state and the country. And so with resources comes a higher level of expectation and accountability. I just wanted to sort of say that I see finally how all of this stuff can work together, and I wanted you to sort of understand that ecosystem a bit as well, a bit more. I've asked the staff to think about, and we actually took it to the trustees as a discussion item last month, and we'll take it to them again this month and probably for a decision in July, that I wanted to actually invest these resources into 3 bins: people, program, and place. And so for the first time in a while, we're going to be able to increase the number of funded students who enroll at Cal Poly Pomona, as well as create opportunities for some student success, academic success initiatives where the campuses will do RFPs and compete and get the best ideas that work here elsewhere and the best ideas elsewhere working here. I wanted to make sure that we invested in the necessary costs of healthcare, which are going up dramatically for all of the employees here, and other fixed costs. So some $50, $60 million of this 125 is spent before we got it on mandatory cost increases, leaving the balance to invest. And so we're going to do some for student enrollment and more for student success. And the final piece will be with our people who haven't had a salary adjustment in quite a while. And you know this, you've lived this more than I have here. I lived it in the UC. Here the staff have not had a pay adjustment since 2007. Now individuals who got reclassified may have moved to a different paying job, so I understand that. But as a group, nothing happened. And for the faculty, again, individuals may have been promoted and had a small change in compensation because of that, but as a group, they haven't moved since 2008. So there's those out there who like to say that Cal State University is too expensive, nobody's working hard, you're not very successful. But let me just try and put it in context because I disagree with that pretty strongly. Today, compared to 5 or 6 years ago, we have lost $1 billion, one with a B. We used to have about $3 billion from the state. Today we get about $2 billion from the state. And then we added back in money on the backs of our students with tuition increases that were quite draconian. Refinanced some debt and did a few other things and sort of got another, so we went down to 1 billion, and with what I just said on tuition and restructuring, gained back about 550 million. So we're still $450 million below where we were in 2007 and 8. And yet, we have 7%, 6 or 7% fewer employees, both academic and non-academic. We have many thousands more students, and our graduation rates have gone up 8 percentage points. So there's an inconvenient truth of what the facts are versus what the assertions are. And I say to each of you, thank you for sticking with this place and with this system as those others in the UC and community colleges have done during a very difficult time. But we're actually doing a reasonably great job. And that's because of your passion and commitment to our students and to your coworkers and to this community. So again, I say thanks for sticking with it. I think things are going to look a little better going forward to each of you. So let me just stop there and say that I wanted to cover a couple of the facts of the moment of our politics and economy. But then, Chris, just do questions, whatever's on people's mind. I'm happy to try and answer them to the best of my ability.
Just quick housekeeping. If you have a question, please flag Chris or me. We're live streaming this event and recording it for those who cannot attend. So
you're recording this? You didn't tell me that. I take it all.
So please raise your hands and flag Chris and I if you have a question.
Well, first of all, welcome.
Thank you.
With your success at UCR, given the wide variation between private industry investments in the UCs and private institutions to those in the Cal States, and especially here in Cal Poly Pomona, how would you advocate for equality of private industry investments in the Cal State system?
What's that song, Where's the Money, or something like that? No. So it's a wonderfully important question that let me just step back for a second and say, while there are many who wish to go back to the good old days of states supporting, a greater percentage of our existence than happens today, I think the reality, I'm an optimist, I really am, but I'm also a realist, is that we're never going to go back. So right now we're roughly 50% state, 50% student. How do we then, yet our costs and aspirations are greater than those two basic revenue streams. Which gets to your question about private investment. So there's philanthropy and those who are in the community, in the business sector, or alums of this place who had that special professor in chemistry who turned their life around. At some point may come back with annual giving, or if they've been very successful financially, the sort of large philanthropy. And of course, one of the great successes for this campus was that large gift from Kellogg some years ago, not an alum, but certainly somebody who cared about this campus. And those are magical, transformative. They come along once or twice maybe in the institution's history. The second thing, and I am going to answer your question, the second thing is the notion of private and privatization of California State University for many is a third rail. That, gosh darn it, this is a public institution and the state ought to pay its fair share. And that's all true. But the truth is, for us to have the kinds of programs that you have at Cal Poly, if we only rely on state resources and student resources, it's going to be a slow slide to mediocrity. Less people will have access to us, and their individual costs will go up and up and up. And quality, quite frankly, will diminish. So I've been talking about public-private partnerships, and depending on the audience, it's either well-received or it's that third rail. And so I've changed it now to say, because this is the way I believe, I just never articulated it, is that the pursuit of public-private partnerships is to preserve the public nature of the California State University. And by public nature, I mean that we're accessible to all with the intellect and ability to do the work and the willingness to do the work and have a high-quality learning environment experience. And so I know you have some projects on the edge of campus. There should be more in the center of campus as we find ways to work with the business sector and with philanthropy to create those public-private partnerships where everybody benefits from that. But again, this is all around not privatizing in the sense of the Ivy League privatization or the USC's or Stanford's privatization, but rather to get those resources in play for public education. So I'm very much in favor of that, and things that there may be policies. I mean, I'm discovering a lot of policies in my office that were probably put in place for all the right reasons some years ago, but never have been sunsetted. We need to sort of take a look at, are we enabling campuses to, be on the right side of the right policies, but not hamstrung to things that would allow us to be better for our students, for our faculty, and for our communities. Thank you for the question. Yes? Are you going to, okay, I'll let you guys decide who gets to ask.
Yeah, I did notice, you're mentioning here that we're doing it with less employees. On the other hand, the distribution has been uneven, and some parts have been going up very much, and some parts have not been going up that much. I have a copy of some pages from the California CSU statistical abstract, and they show that over the past 29 years, in very round numbers, the number of faculty has gone up about 3%, the number of students about 30%, and the number of people in the subset of the administrative side, the administrators, executives, managers, and other professionals has gone up 130%. And be very clear about that. I'm not talking about operational staff. I'm talking about people in the higher echelons. And as a new chancellor, I wonder if you might be considering revisiting some of this and seeing if we really need to distribute the resources in that type of fashion.
Yeah, it's a fair question. One of the risks when we talk about resources and we talk about percentages of this is, what's the base of the percentage? And, so 130%, but on top of what base? I'm not arguing the point. I just want to make sure that we realize that a percentage is not total number. Now, I have been a campus person my entire career. I actually went to school in 1966, the fall of 1966, and I've been on a college campus ever since until January of this year. So I'm going through a very serious withdrawal from campus life, and whether I was in California or Michigan or Oregon or Idaho, it was always those folks in the center office. What are they trying to do to us on the campus? I mean, it was this part of the lexicon, and now when I hear about things in the chancellor's office, my initial reaction is, that's me now. And I've actually spoken to all of the employees there, but certainly the leadership there, about how we go forward, making certain that the system office adds value to the campuses. Now, there's some things that we can do on a scale of a system, collective bargaining, insurance rates, things, purchasing, things of that nature that make sense. But the blunt reality is the students are on campuses. There isn't a student in my place. The faculty are on campuses, the degrees are on campuses. So the work of the California State University occurs on the campuses. And so I want to just analyze, and I'm early in my learning, to figure out how do we make sure that as many resources as is possible for program get to the campuses while being responsible and adding value to the campuses from the center, and also being responsible to elected officials both in Sacramento and Washington who require a lot of information and data about us. During my time at the UC and in running one of the campuses, we very much moved. There are a lot of academic and research programs run out of the Office of the President in Oakland, and we moved those all to campuses. And I think that's the thing we have to do here as well. Now, there has to be good administration in order to enable the academic life. And so I would never say that we should look at what people are doing and how they're adding value or creating opportunity. Fund development officers, are an expense, but actually they're an investment, things of that nature. So we're going to go through systematically, kind of going back to your question on public-private and your question about how many, what's the right size administration to enable success, and really analyze it intellectually as to how do we foresee the next 10, 15, 20 years of how we'll go about running our business with all of the changes and expectations that are out there, and make sure we have the right skill sets in the right places to do the job. And so I don't know what the answer will be on percentages of this or percentages of that, but I take the point that the core business occurs on the 23 campuses, and each of the campuses then needs a leadership team that is capable. I must say that when there is incapable leadership on a campus, the cost of that is long-lived. And the exposure that creates in a litigious world is stunningly amazing. So when I see that there's, as I've got into the bowels of us, where there was failed leadership, the decades impact that has on a community is really quite stunning. And so I don't want to be dismissive of the importance of good leadership and good administration, but I take your point, are we right-sized for our enterprise, not for today, but for the opportunities and challenges that come down the stream, and that's my task, is to kind of think the big picture, so I take your point.
Hi, I'm Rocky Sanchez. I'm the CSUEU Employees Union Statewide BUC 7 Vice Chair and Chief Steward of Chapter 319, Cal Poly Pomona. Currently, there is only one campus that recognizes that staff are being bullied on the job and has implemented a policy on that bullying. It is unfortunate that the administration refuses to recognize this problem and the impact it makes on everyone and not just staff. My question is if you plan on having a system-wide anti-bullying policy for staff.
No. I have a third grader, and I started thinking about some of the lessons you have in early childhood education about bullying. I'm very respectful to your question and the concern. Bullying in the workplace has no place. How much of it requires a system-wide policy versus a campus-wide policy versus in various employment groups, I am too young to know the answer to that. but am I interested in not having bullying in the workplace and to have consequences of those who participate in bullying, like we do for sexual harassment and other unaccepted behaviors? You bet. What's the best way to get there? I don't know, but I accept your point. And I don't even know which campus has a policy. Chico?
Their president actually took a stand in regards to evidence voting.
Right.
Being a statewide officer within the CSUEU, we hear from all the campuses, and this campus is not an exception to the rules system-wide in regards to the business policy. Being a chief steward
Yeah.
and being representative,
I got you.
we understand.
Yeah, I'll take a look and see what the right thing to do is. But in terms of do I stand up against bullying? You bet I do. There's I don't know if I want to say this word on television. You can go to Amazon and you can look up the word that begins in A and ends in E. And it's written by, I think it's a physics professor at Stanford. It's $10.99. And it talks about no, and then I'll let you think of what that word is. It's a noun in the context in which I'm using it now, in the workplace. And it goes through in an intellectual way and in sort of a funny way. To think that a Stanford professor would use that word probably 1,000 times in the book is pretty hilarious. But the point being that a toxic personality in a workplace is so costly to an organization's success and turnover. I mean, it's really quite an amazing book. So I'm on your side. I just don't know the right way to get there. It's a great read, especially over a couple of beers. We're gonna go left and right here. Oh, looks like we're going 2 to my left.
Okay.
We'll do 2 on the right. We got to balance this out.
Good afternoon, Chancellor
Hi.
White. I had the opportunity a few weeks ago to attend a public hearing of the State Senate Finance Committee. And the topic was about healthcare within the state colleges and universities, public system, of course. And you may be privy to the hearing from the Senate record, but if I may be permitted to just paraphrase a little bit, the concern of the Senate Finance Committee is that these healthcare costs are blowing up way out of control to a point where it might threaten the very benefit package for all of us who are faculty staff here. Right. We've heard about raises for years. You know what the situation is. And I think a lot of us here throughout the system on both faculty and staff side are very concerned that if the trustees are given a choice between health care and other benefits, the guess on our side, I would presume, would be we would rather have our health care, which could therefore threaten other benefits, including raises and other things that you've alluded to. A couple questions. One is EVC Quillian looking at this in any kind of detailed way? And secondly, what are the views of the trustees were we to face this Sophie's choice? Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. It's a really important question. So if I can parse your question even a little bit further, it's, first of all, there's the absolute cost of healthcare in America that is, I mean, it's just escalating every year. I mean, student health insurance, our employee health insurance, when I was at UC, the same thing. I mean, it's just amazing curve. And so the unknown here is, what is the Affordable Care Act going to mean to the overall cost of health insurance in America? And will there be a flattening of it for those of us in the CSU? So that's, the absolute cost is one thing, and then who's paying the cost is the second piece, and perhaps more central to your question. Right now, the CSU is, well, you know the data better than I mean, I think it's on average 95% of the cost of healthcare insurance is paid by the university, and 5% is taken out of our paychecks. We are an outlier among state employee groups where the average is typically 80-20. And so you're right, there is both an optics and a political pressure to say, should Cal State employees be similar to others? So I don't know where the trustees sit on this yet, but I will find out. and Ben, but also I think even more importantly, the folks in HR are sort of thinking through what the strategies might be to do this. So, if I came to you and said, I need $2 to pay for your health insurance, you would probably say, Chancellor, I'm glad you're my chancellor, but no, or words to that effect, right? If I came to you and said, I'm going to give you a $2 pay raise, but I need $2 back for health insurance, you'd go, why would we do this? But if I can come to you and say, I need $5 raise, but I need $2 back for health insurance, you'll say, man, I could sure use that $5, but 3's better than not. And so I really think it makes intellectual sense to me, which is different than the bargaining process, to sort of talk about the compensation as the package, because that's really what it is. And why would we only talk about this piece of it and pretend the rest isn't there? Because all of it is a cost to the state and a cost to our students who are actually paying our collective freight. So I'm looking forward to learning more about the moving parts there. I feel the same pressures that you're picking up in Senate hearings and in the press. And we'll see what comes out. The May revise and the wording in the May revise is going to go a long way to determining exactly what the trustees take on compensation as we go through the next set of bargaining with our various employee groups. But I got the issue, and I'm very alert to it. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, all right. Okay. Thank you, Chancellor White, for making the time to visit our beautiful and wonderful campus. I'm a faculty member in College of Business, and one of the things we keep talking about is globalization. So help us understand the total ban on international travel, where one could go to Hawaii happily, but cannot go to Tijuana. Or a colleague was denied conference travel to Niagara Falls, Canada, even though he was willing to stay on the US side and travel to Buffalo.
Well, Niagara Falls is really a violent place if you get in a barrel. And so maybe there was a psychological profile of this faculty member and they just didn't want to lose a valued professor. I don't know. Well, listen, the issue, I think, is how do we appropriately manage risk for our individual employees and the organization with the notion that we're a California-based international enterprise, where students and faculty and staff should be able to, for academic purposes, travel to the places in the world for their research or their learning or on sabbaticals and things of that nature. So, I'm on the side of facilitating that. I'm also on the side of not being reckless in putting people knowingly in harm's way. Because when that happens, there's this very large set of information out there about incidence rates in certain places in the world. So if we enable and use, particularly if we use state money to enable somebody to travel someplace where we know there's a high risk of kidnap, then, well, it's happening in Pomona, but if we wanted to manage risk, we'd take away your car keys. Let me try and, I'm good at the big picture, not very good on details, but because I'm still learning them. But I just wanted to say what the titration is here, is to sort of manage risk. And when there's a State Department warning about a place, we really cannot afford to say it's okay to travel there. If something bad, first of all, the public would say, what the heck are you doing? And secondly, if something bad happened there, the financial exposure is hundreds of millions of dollars, and that's out of our operating expenses. So I don't want to do that. I recently lifted the concern about Mexico because there are tough spots in Mexico around drugs, but there's a lot of spots where it's not tough. And so why don't we, so if somebody wants to go to a place that's not a warlord territory, then we can simply sit down with that person and say, you know, you want to get there, but here's how you get there in a safe way, right? I don't know what the Canada thing could possibly be about, and I don't know what the, you know, I mean, I just don't know what that means.
I don't want to take the time. We were never given this explanation.
Yeah.
And the provost says, period, you can't go anywhere. That's the end of the story. You can't go to London, you can't go to Vancouver, you can't go anywhere, period.
Well, I mean, I don't know if this is
You
a,
can go to Hawaii.
well, of the two, between Vancouver and Hawaii. I don't know if it's a funding source of support issue. I just don't know the details. But my point is, if we do this correctly, it's, you know, if there are funds, research funds to travel to Vancouver, they're not state funds, there isn't a moratorium on state travel, fair enough, right? But in hard economic times, it's state-supported travel that gets pushed way down. And so we take those dollars and direct them to other things. So I don't know the background of the story. I wanted to try to say that we do want to manage risk, but not avoid being a global institution, to your point. And you can work it out with your president, yeah.
Hello.
Hi.
My name's Tammy Marr. I'm a fourth-year student here, and I honestly love this campus. I've been notified of your coming here for about a week, and I've been preparing this question. About a month ago, the Department of Managed Healthcare passed a letter called 12K that requires all health insurances in California to remove exclusions and limitations for transgender healthcare and gender-conforming surgeries. I'm curious, how is the CSU going to start implementing this? Timelines? Are we going to start seeing doctors with the knowledge to start prescribing our students and staff, faculty with hormones and surgeries to be outsourced elsewhere? And is there going to be any awareness around this?
Okay, great question. I'm personally unaware of if it's a new law that's been signed into law, we will definitely be a law-abiding citizen. But I think it's also part of our DNA to be inclusive and to support all of our students and faculty and staff on the whole range of the spectrum of the tapestry of humanity. So whether a given campus has physicians on staff who deal with transgender individuals, probably not, because the balance. Do all of the medical folks on this campus need to understand issues around transgender student? You bet they do, and have referrals in the community for the medical care. So it'll be through human resources and through student health, student affairs, where the individual campuses in the system will mobilize to do the right thing. So I appreciate the question. And I want to be very clear that I'm on the side of making sure that we support and enable everyone in humanity who has the right and the ability and the work ethic to be a member of our community. And whatever the law requires, we'll certainly comply. But I hope we actually go a little bit beyond the law and sort of the spirit of what an inclusive, diverse community means in modern America. So thank you.
Chancellor White, thank you for being here today.
Trying to read your shirt. Take
California
class
Faculty
action.
Association.
All right, good. All right.
The elected lecturer representative.
I can only see A-K-L-A-T-I, and I couldn't figure out what the heck that meant. There we go.
My name is Päivi Hoikkala. I have been a part-time temporary lecturer in the history department for 16 years. You talked about earlier about faculty, the importance of having a strong, robust faculty. Mm-hmm. And the reality, or another inconvenient truth, is that about half of our faculty are contingent faculty. And often contingent faculty are completely marginalized invisible in terms of shared governance. So I would like to have some of your thoughts about this issue, and is there any hope in the future for having more tenure line, possibly moving existing lecturer faculty into tenure line positions?
Important question. So I think part of the answer, I know it wasn't, I can answer it more from the UC side, was as one way to manage through tough economies is to stop tenure track hiring and deliver the curriculum with adjunct professors by whatever HR title, adjunct folk. And as you well know, there's a certain sort of flexibility there for a department to say, oh my God, I need 3 more of these, let's get on our Rolodex and they'll be here tomorrow. Rather than the longer term commitment of national searches and the new person comes in and they're here for their, for their career or a good part of their career. So I think part of the balance switch has occurred because even though we've been through recent hard times, it's not been flush in the Cal State for a long time. So this sort of financial pressure to instead of being 80-20, 80 being tenure track and 20, I don't know what the ratios were back in the day, but to 60-40 to 50-50 to wherever it is today on a given campus. So the drive, I think, has been economic and in the practical sort of mobility of a workforce kind of a business model piece. I think now that we're back in a growing economy, and if we can have predictable, sufficient resources, not only from the state, but some of the public-private partnerships, undoubtedly we'll get back to, I hope, modest and predictable tuition increases in the out years. As campuses see the revenue streams and the student interest, manage their enrollment around both having students here and the revenue they bring. Coming back to your question about globalization, Pomona could be a destination campus for students from other countries. You pick 2 or 3 majors and say, let's be very welcoming to a group of students from Mexico or from Seoul and create a community around that and the resources that come with that. Then I think the campus will be in a position to decide how do we populate our faculty. And it is really a campus-based decision. I mean, I feel very strongly that, going back to the gentleman's question in the back about administration, I certainly don't want to dictate to your campus what your ratio ought to be or who you hire. I mean, that is a prerogative of faculty to hire who they think are the right set of skills and so forth, and that balance will be a locally decided deal. But I think in better times, there may be more permanent. And then I think, and again, the campus will decide, but usually you do those on a competitive basis, and you're very accomplished, what do you call it, contingent faculty? I always like to put people, I hate to say disabled person, I always say a person with disability. We need to think about faculty with contingencies or something, I don't know. But I mean, it has sort of pejorative implication, right? Yeah, so, okay. So I got it, local decision, better finances, we can probably get better going forward. Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
I have a question regarding 2 things that I think are pretty pressing issues, especially for students, things that are coming up. For the state budget, Governor Brown is proposing a unit cap across the board for all higher education, and I wanted to know if that's something that's going to be taken on by the Board of Trustees and by you, and also the transition to semesters.
Are there questions on this side?
They roped us very quickly.
Oh, look, it's 3:30 now. Okay, so let's try the unit piece first. And just like the global question, let me try and answer it from a taller point of view. So when it's a balancing act of the trustees, and now there's some elected officials who are getting interested in this question. So if it gets into law, then the discussion sort of has a clear direction. is the individual right of a student to be a student and to get into a program and then to change or to stub her toe along the way, and instead of 120 for a degree, it's now at 130, and then it becomes a change my major, or I want to add a minor, or the job market's bad and I'm going to stay in, and I'm not going to graduate, but I'm going to get, so that's the individual piece of being a student. And I think most of the faculty, I know I would agree with the idea, part of a campus life is to, you come here expecting to be a civil engineering, and all of a sudden you discover ag economics, and you go, I didn't even know it existed, and that's where I'm going. And it may take you a year to figure that out. If we denied that, we would really diminish the university. The other piece of it is students who are sticking around for whatever reason, legitimate or not, are preventing others from coming in as first-year students or as transfer students. The discussion that the trustees had in January, my first board meeting, I've been on the job 2 weeks, to limit most majors to 120 credits, semester 180 quarter, was presented that with that simple policy change, some 2,000 to 4,000 more students could access Cal State University at the front end. That is what this balancing act is about, is the public right to access and the individual right to do a little exploring along the way. What's the number? 157, 149, I mean, those become arbitrary or thoughtful expressions of the overall policy concern. The trustees haven't taken a stand on overall credits. They did discuss before my time and then tabled, which I encouraged and supported, the notion of a financial fee on the super seniors, until I had a chance to sort of study what's driving super seniors. And sometimes it's the perennial student, but is she the exception, or are there other things that are legitimate that we're doing as an organization or society is doing that create the super senior? So we're going to move carefully on this, but this is the idea of how to balance. Quarter versus semester. Similar sort of big picture issue. What's the best learning environment? I mean, there are great campuses who do quarters and great campuses who do semesters. Across the country, it's about 80% or so do semesters and 20% do quarters. The quarter has some advantages. In, out, snappy, boom, boom, boom. Okay? Semesters actually, so I've taught and done research and been a student in quarters and semesters. And I've worked in trimesters. And I think the Cal State system should go to trimesters. It's absolutely the best. So we're going to piss off everybody, just not 6 of you. 10 weeks. Take a challenging class. You may not even know you're not prepared for it. You get in week 3. Oh my God. First hourly exam, failed it, bombed it. Better get in and see the professor. Takes a week to get in there. 4th week, got the intervention in place. Professor says, you'll go back and study this, this, and this, and by the way, here's all this other stuff coming. Week 6, you're trying to do what you missed on the front end, do the new stuff, but you don't know the first stuff, so you can't do the second stuff. Second hourly exam, bomb it again. F in the class. Semester, or trimester, 17, 19 weeks. For students who take on a very rigorous class, there's an opportunity to go, oh my gosh, and then find an intervention and succeed. And when I look across the system, there's a lot of students who are first generation who are taking remedial work to where stubbing your toe is a reality. Do we want to have those students get in a negative spiral early in their career? So that's one consideration. Second consideration is the now law, but for a long time, the migration of students from the community colleges into the 4-year schools. And if one's a semester and one's a quarter, it creates a lot of friction. And particularly if a student is concurrently enrolled. So you go into a local community college and So the idea is if everybody's semesters, then it'll ease the transfer. And you may be surprised at this, I was. This last fall, of the 110,000 or 12,000 students that were admitted into Cal State, fully 50% of them came from community colleges, and 50% were out of high school. I mean, 54,000 students out of each group, roughly. So there's a lot of transfers that come in. You know, I was one of them, not here. You were one of them. So, and then finally, I have this dream unvetted by reality yet, or academic senate, or the president, or the provost, or the faculty in general, about sharing Pomona's very best faculty member with all the other campuses with technology. Somebody from Humboldt who's doing something amazing in environmental marine science that everybody would benefit by that course, the general ed level or at a major, you know, your engineering majors here. If we're all roughly on semesters, not identical calendars, that'll never happen, but certainly roughly the same, I think there's an ability to do things differently. And so for those who are, next year, Bakersfield and Los Angeles campuses are going to start sort of a 2.5-year process to go to semesters. And then I still haven't fully vetted this with Academic Senate, but the ones remaining are the Cal Polys and then San Bernardino and East Bay. And I do want to sort of stretch it out over time because there's a cost associated with it. A lot of faculty will have an opportunity to work in the summertime and be paid to do conversion. The campus may decide to not only convert, but also redesign some courses, especially areas where faculty think it's time to refresh stuff. So, I mean, I look at this as an amazing opportunity. My responsibility goes beyond each individual campus and for the system as a whole. I'm going to work my darndest to make sure any decisions that I have to make for the system don't hurt the learning environment for a given campus, which is different than being a royal pain in the neck and a lot of work. And finally, we will fund the vast majority, 70–80% of this from the center, not from operating to take the dollars out of it. I believe in a co-pay model. I'll be clear about that. I want some ownership, and so there's money involved in that. And then the IT piece needs to be done centrally as well. So with all the technology stuff. That's the direction we're going. We have more conversations to go, but I think most of the campuses are sort of saying, yeah, this makes a lot of sense when they start getting past the immediate, oh my gosh, no reaction. Finally, I would say I was on the Berkeley campus with semesters, went to quarters, and 2 years later went back to semesters. It's a reasonable campus, at least on that issue. So I think we're probably, look to you, Chris, to wrap us up.
Unfortunately, we've run out of time, but I want to thank you all for your questions and thank the Chancellor for spending some time with us here at Cal Poly Pomona. If we can give him a round of applause, please. And on behalf of the university, I'd like to give you this very heavy gift bag.
Look at this.
There you go. It's a lot of good stuff in there, Cal Poly stuff.
Oh my goodness, it is full. I think that, oh, yep. The wait is worth it. Thank you very much, everybody. Thanks for being generous with your time and thoughtfulness with your questions. We'll see you soon.
Thank you very much, sir. Very much appreciated.
Thanks, yeah.
Thank you very much.